This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it all.
Stop. Yeah, stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me. Gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy!
Been a long education.
Yeah, you know, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
All right, and welcome to it on a Thursday. It's the Steve Gruber Show. I love your input at 888-900-9966. 888-900-9966. The debate last night was it was a good conversation when they bothered to have one about substance. But the moderators there from NBC News, clearly they had something different in mind when they came out. I mean, they just wanted a food fight. They wanted some sort of nasty exchange so they could make headlines for themselves. I'm going to give you a quick litany of how that was received by the candidates, and you can hear how the audience responds as well. Ted Cruz, here's what he had to say.
Opposition to it show that you're not the kind of problem solver American voters want.
You know, let me say something at the outset. The questions that asked so far in this debate illustrate why the American people don't trust the media. This is not a cage match. And you look at the questions. Donald Trump, are you a comic book villain? Ben Carson, can you do math? John Kasich, will you insult two people over here? Marco Rubio, why don't you resign? Jeb Bush, why have your numbers fallen? How about talking about the substantive issues people care about? Does this count?
And it was so honest and accurate. That's why it was beautiful. Ted Cruz coming out and laying it out, and he was right. He was exactly right. And then later, a question about fantasy football. For real, fantasy football apparently was the biggest question that these moderators could come up with. Chris Christie of New Jersey had this to say.
We have $19 trillion in debt. We have people out of work. We have ISIS and Al-Qaeda attacking us. And we're talking about fantasy football? Can we stop? Stop. So you're answering seriously. How about this? How about we get the government to do what they're supposed to be doing? Secure our borders, protect our people, and support American values and American families.
That's exactly right. So Christie got in his licks. But then I think the big winner of the night, in my estimation, that'd make it two debates in a row. The young man who shined the brightest, Marco Rubio. Again, the media attack. Here's what he had to say.
If I may just say,
just a minute, Mrs. Speaker, let me follow up on this for just a moment. You had talked a little bit about Marco Rubio. I think you called him Mark Zuckerberg's personal senator because he was in favor of the H-1B.
I never said that. I never said that.
So this was an erroneous article the whole way around?
He's got another gentleman in Florida who happens to be a very nice guy, but not...
My apologies. I'm sorry.
Somebody's really doing some bad facts.
Since I've been mentioned, can I respond?
Yes, you may.
Okay. You know, the Democrats have the ultimate super PAC. It's called the mainstream media. Who every single day, and I'll tell you why. Last week, Hillary Clinton went before a committee. She admitted she had sent emails to her family saying, hey, this attack in Benghazi was caused by Al-Qaeda-like elements. She spent over a week telling the families of those victims and the American people that it was because of a video. And yet the mainstream media is going around saying it was the greatest week in Hillary Clinton's campaign. It was the week she got exposed as a liar. It was the week that she got exposed as a liar. But she has her super PAC helping her out, the American mainstream media.
Senator and he was Rubio, exactly right, and that's one of the reasons that Marco Rubio landed some punches. Marco Rubio getting some punches in that were pretty solid. And obviously, yeah, but the media makes it easy when they behave like that, to take shots like that. Now, there was some questions of substance. Let's see here. Donald Trump, who has a concealed weapons permit in the state of New York, fairly rare actually, had a conversation about gun control. Here's how that went.
And I do carry on occasion, sometimes a lot, but I like to be unpredictable so that people don't know exactly what you're carrying. Unlike this country, by the way, unlike our country, where we're totally predictable, and the enemy, whether it's ISIS or anybody else, they know exactly what we're doing because we have the wrong leadership. But I feel that the gun-free zones, and when you say that, that's target practice for the sickos and for the mentally ill. That's target. They look around for gun-free zones. I mean, we could give you another example. The Marines, the Army, these wonderful 6 soldiers that were killed. 2 of them were among the most highly decorated. They weren't allowed on a military base to have guns, and somebody walked in and shot them, killed them.
Does it just, does this surprise you?
He wouldn't be around very long, I can tell you. There wouldn't have been much damage. So I think gun-free zones are a catastrophe. They're a feeding frenzy for sick people.
He's right about that, but does it surprise you? Because I'm sitting there listening to Donald Trump vigorously defend the right to keep and bear arms, the right to defend himself, the right to have a concealed pistol license, and that's in the state of New York. That's in New York. It surprises me, I guess, that he is the strongest proponent of the Second Amendment. Now, I look at that field and I think, well, I guess maybe that makes sense, but I would think that maybe Ted Cruz might be a more staunch opponent. Marco Rubio might be a more staunch opponent, but I don't know. What I do know is that Donald Trump stepped up and said, I am your guy, and I have a concealed weapons permit, and this is who I am, and planted his flag there, which I think is pretty critical and pretty key. Now, so much more to go through on this debate, but we want to give it to you in digestible bites, so we'll get to more of it a little bit later. We'll have Ben Carson talking about gay marriage a little bit later here in the program, because he gets, they come after Ben Carson because he is a Seventh-day Adventist. He is a Christian who says, listen, here's what I believe. Now, he also said that nobody should be treated differently under the Constitution. In fact, here's a little bit what he said about the LGBT community.
I believe that our Constitution protects everybody, regardless of their sexual orientation or any other aspect. I also believe that marriage is between one man and one woman, and that there is no reason that you can't be perfectly fair to the gay community. They shouldn't automatically assume that because you believe that marriage is between one man and one woman, that you are a homophobe. And this is one of the myths that the left perpetrates on our society. And this is how they frighten people and get people to shut up. That's what the PC culture is all about, and it's destroying this nation. And the fact of the matter is, we, the American people, are not each other's enemies. It's those people who are trying to divide us who are the enemies, and we need to make that very clear to everybody.
And he, very well done. Very well done by Ben Carson. He is leading in the polls. I don't know if he bolstered his poll numbers last night, although according to those picking up followers on Twitter, Ben Carson picked up the most. Marco Rubio picked up the second highest number of followers on Twitter. I mean, that's just one simple way to gauge this thing, I suppose. It's one of the ways we gauge it now, anyway, is by social media. Anyhow, Ben Carson did well last night. Rubio did well. Cruz and Trump both did well. And then there's pretty much everybody else. So as we whittle it on down, it's Thursday here on the Steve Gruber Show. We'll be right back.
The Steve Gruber Show. American values with Midwestern common sense.
I want to live. I want to give. I've been a miner for a heart of gold. It's these expressions.
It's Thursday.
I never give.
You can find out more at stevegruber.com, as always. I figured we better get a professional in here, somebody who really knows what they're looking at. Me looking at the debate, well, I thought the moderators were shabby, and their questions were, I mean, would you really, you ask Donald Trump, do you think you're a cartoon character of a presidential candidate? Is that a serious question? I mean, what journalism school did you go to ask a question like that? Anyhow. and another example. So we decided to get Aaron Kall in here, the director of the University of Michigan debate program and the Debate Institute, to help us understand who the real winners and losers are. Aaron Kall, welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me again.
Well, you know, I think you can measure the winners and losers in different ways. I mean, my impression was that Marco Rubio had a very good night. He seemed to hit the high notes. He took on the media. And it seems that the media, am I wrong? When you ask somebody a question about art, do you think you're a cartoon character? And some of the other phraseology and things of the debate last night, it was pretty, I don't know, sophomoric, Bush League, really. Am I wrong about that?
No, I think certainly not the way that I would have started the questioning of the evening with so many important issues. And I think that the previous debates, some of the moderators were praised so much that the performance last night looks even more poor in comparison. You always want the candidates to be the highlights and what everyone focuses on, not the questioners. It became one of the major plot lines from last night.
Yeah, and I think that the one that really, for me, I mean, I thought Marco Rubio's answer on the best super PAC is the mainstream media, but I thought Chris Christie, when he said, really, we've got $19 trillion in debt, and you want to talk about fantasy football? I thought that, to me, that resonated, and I think that resonated, when you have the red line, green line thing that go up and down, I think that would have resonated well with viewers. But, okay, break it down for me, if you would, sir. Who do you think had the best performance and why?
I think Rubio had the best night for sure. He had a pretty good performance last time, but mainly on foreign policy. This time he really connected with things like the economy and, as you mentioned, the deficit and the debt. And he, with his exchange with Governor Bush, which was something that was, very kind of a lot of hype and attention, I thought he certainly had the better of that exchange. And so for the kind of establishment candidates, major focus there, he had a really strong performance, and I imagine has really solidified himself as kind of a solid third, if not higher, going forward to the next debate.
I think he's definitely moving in. The last couple of times around, Carly Fiorina had pretty good debates. Nothing from her last night of significance that I could tell. But I look at Huckabee, Kasich, Rand Paul. None of these folks had particularly good evenings. I thought Kasich had one or two answers that were okay. After that, nothing that's going to move the needle. I think that Donald Trump talking about gun control was a pretty strong answer, saying that he actually has a concealed weapons permit. I thought Dr. Carson talking about a couple of the things, everybody's protected equally under the Constitution, fairly strong answer there. But I think you're right. I think Marco Rubio is the person that stands out in this for the second debate in a row. That you just pointed out. So, I mean, it could really move the needle for him.
It could. I mean, he's already was in a pretty solid position of kind of third place and high single digits or even mid-teens. And he had very several memorable lines. You mentioned a few of them, and those are going to play well in the cycle going forward. And so I think the next few days following is going to be a really strong focus on him. And he I think has reached that top tier status and really give good next debate and campaign with Trump and Carson, and he's kind of reached that elite status with two really good performances in a row.
He's very young by comparison to some of the other candidates. He has a youthful exuberance, but he is a true believer in America. When you hear his stories, I had a chance to see him in person a couple of times, and he is a true believer. And I think that resonates well with people as well.
Yeah, he talked about his experience and talked about his family a lot and really was very relatable. And yeah, he's certainly out of all the candidates, the most prepared. He had clearly practiced the most, done the most research. He knew the questions were coming about his senatorial record, about his life experience, finances. All of those had prepared answers, and just kind of shows the practice, research, and things like that really pay off when you treat these things seriously and see the benefits that can come from a really strong performance.
And not to mention, I mean, let's give credit to his skill set. He's bright. He's hardworking, and he's talented. Because you could, not just anybody could go through the practice and the preparation and do that well. He did very well. Good point.
No, yeah, you can practice 24 hours a day, but if you don't have the candidates to pull it off at a real high pressure situations and perform, then you're not going to accomplish what you mean. So he certainly did all that, but then also delivered in a really big stage and a really important moment.
So for some of the candidates I mentioned, like Carly Fiorina, Mike Huckabee, Rand Paul, John Kasich, if they don't move the needle here sometime soon, these candidates could be in trouble. So as we look down the road to the next debate, do some of these candidates, is it time to start throwing the Hail Marys?
Yes, we're certainly, we're less than 100 days into the first voting, and we are getting close. But something interesting about the next debate, we've had a really long session. We had 4 weeks, 6 weeks between them, but there's a much shorter turnaround. The next debate is only about 2 weeks, and so I don't know that you're going to see a lot of action. On the Democratic side, you're down to 3, but as long as they can still financially stay in the race, they'll probably continue to be at the debates. But as you mentioned, they're going to have to, with really not much to lose, you may even see more contentious debates coming in the future because it's do or die with voting starting so soon.
Very true, and I greatly appreciate it. Aaron Kall, director of the University of Michigan Debate Program and the Debate Institute. Thank you for breaking it down for us. I'm sure we will talk again in a couple of weeks because we have more debates ahead, my friend.
All right, thank you.
There you have it, Aaron Kall, everybody, here on the Steve Gruber Show, giving you professional analysis of who wins and who loses. He, too, says Marco Rubio was the man last night. Back in a moment.
Michigan, born and raised with Midwestern values and Michigan common sense.
Well, time to take a look at some different headlines for a few minutes now. You probably heard that Barack Obama recently addressed the International Association of Chiefs of Police. One of our good friends and contributor, Chief Dan Roberts, was there as well. He just returned. And FBI Director James Comey's remarks, by focusing on the overall crime statistics for this country, which show crime going down on a national level for several years, there was a consensus among attendees that better statistics on crime needs to be kept and reported. However, there was no suggestion as how to pay for that collection and that requirement. And James Comey also got himself into some hot water a couple of times. And interestingly enough, for a lot of folks that believe Barack Obama does not support police and police officers the way he should, it created for an interesting dynamic, to say the least. Chief Dan Roberts here, our good friend and former FBI man himself. Chief, welcome back to the program.
Hey, good to be back with you, Steve.
So, all right, tell me about, what was it? I think I read it was like 14,000 people at this gathering. So it's a big get-together, to say the least.
This is a big deal. This is about the largest gathering that the chiefs of police and other command staff get to every year, and it's held at a different venue every year. And this year it was in Chicago. About 16,000 chiefs and other command staff were there, and FBI Director Comey spoke on Monday to the General Assembly, and then the President spoke on Tuesday. And, it was a very interesting discussion. Director Comey teed it up. He was right on point with a lot of his remarks. And the biggest thing that came out of it, and I think the thing that got him into hot water with the President, was that he talked about this YouTube effect, where the director had been out, the FBI Director had been out meeting with police officers, meeting with, various chiefs and others, and talking about the fact that patrolmen now are not willing to get out of their patrol cars in some instances unless they have to, because they're worried about becoming the next viral video on YouTube. And
absolutely. And why would you get out of your car? I mean, here's the thing. You dedicate your life to public service. Are you perfect? No, you're a human being. So you get out of your car for whatever incident's going on, and the next thing you know, there's this video. The next thing you know, not only are they taking your job, they're trying to take your freedom. Because if something goes wrong, or they show, get 15 seconds of video instead of a minute and a half or 2 minutes or whatever really happened, that 15 seconds could land you in jail for the next several years. Right. So being a police officer, it's always been a thankless job for many. Now I think it's even worse. Am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely right, and that all contributes to now what you're seeing is a very difficult time to recruit good quality applicants to become police officers these days. I mean, there were some statistics out of California that were just amazing about a number of police vacancies right now in all of the police departments across the state of California. And I can tell you right here in Michigan that's true, where all of us police chiefs are fighting for the same small pool of quality applicants, and this doesn't help our cause any. I mean, when you ever, and the director spoke, the FBI director spoke about, particular instance where maybe before a police officer would be on patrol and see a group of kids at 1 o'clock in the morning congregating on a corner, they'd jump out and, disperse that crowd, whereas now there's no incentive to do that unless they're called there for some specific reason.
Yeah, which makes it very difficult. It occurs to me, though, looking at the numbers, though, 14,000 members of law enforcement gathered there in Chicago. That might be enough to clean the city up and get the homicide rate down in Chicago. I mean, that could have been a positive side note to the problems they have in Chicago.
There's
14,000 might not be enough. You're right. It might just be a start. As you look at the state of law enforcement today, and you look at the classes, and if you talk to some young people, Chief, that say, I'm thinking about a career in law enforcement, well, what can you honestly look them in the eye and tell them?
Well, they just need to go into it with eyes wide open. They need to know exactly what they're going to face. It's still a great career, one I've been doing for 33 years now. I enjoy it. I still like it. It's challenging. This is a hard job. There's no doubt about that. But you don't get into this job in the best of times thinking that it's going to be easy. And so, this will get better. The climate will get better, I think, in the future, but you just have to go into it eyes wide open. The thing that concerns me even more than this YouTube stuff is the fact that budgets have been constrained so much over the past several years in police departments that, whereas officers used to get decent health care benefits and decent retirement benefits over the years, a lot of those have gone away, and so that's making the profession a lot less attractive as well.
Yeah, when you're trying to sell something, hey, you may not be well thought of and you might be hated on occasion, but we've got a great benefits package. I mean, there is something there that tempers that out a little bit sometimes. I mean, it's going to be tough duty, but we'll make the pay worthwhile, we'll make the benefits worthwhile. You can take care of your family, and you're right. If you take some of those things off the table, then people are going to say, well, now why would I want to do that? It doesn't make it a tougher sell, but on this balancing that out, the taxpayers are like, how much more can we pay for everything? Because we're asked to pay more and more all the time, it seems, and that's the opinion that so many folks get. So you've got that to balance out as well. You've got the disgruntled taxpayers, and you've got the men and women that want to be in law enforcement, but maybe it's not attractive enough anymore. So those are big concerns on both sides.
Yes, without a doubt. And all of those factors contribute to the fact that this is the lowest pool of candidates that I've seen in my career in terms of the number of people that are willing to get into this profession. There's still excellent people that are out there that want to do it, and they want to do it for all the right reasons. They want to help people, and that is just in a police officer's nature, and that's what attracts people to this job. Look, they're not coming to this because they're looking to be a millionaire. They're just looking for it because they want to help people, and there's still good people out there that do that. It's just a lot fewer than there used to be over the years.
Here's one other thing that comes to mind. The other thing about it's gotten a lot of discussion, certainly since the Baltimore riots here recently, is that this mass incarceration approach in America. We do have a tremendous amount of people in prison and behind bars, and now there's a call to move away from it. The social justice warriors, if you will, are saying we need to step away from that. But as we've stepped away from that, violent crime in Baltimore and Chicago and elsewhere in 2015 has returned to levels it hasn't been in 2 or 3 decades, because, again, police officers maybe not getting out of the car and maybe not arresting as many people.
Well, that was actually FBI Director Comey's remarks. You're right on point there. That's exactly what his supposition was, with that maybe this whole YouTube effect is part of the reason why those cities that you mentioned, and Milwaukee is another one, Chicago is certainly one, and Baltimore. There's others across the country. He named off a dozen or 15 that have had spikes in violent crime, shootings and homicides and other things across the country that he and his intelligence teams are trying to figure out why those particular cities are seeing that spike in violent crime right now. And one of the things that he put forth was perhaps part of it is this YouTube effect, that police officers are just not being as proactive as they used to be because they're worried about becoming the next viral video that's out there. And that was his thing. Now, I have to tell you that the president the next day was very much pushed back on that idea. He pointed to the overall fact that the crime has been going down in this country for the last, 5-6 years, something like that. And so
but not this year,
there was definitely some conflict there.
Yeah, not this year, Mr. President. The crime rate this year is certainly not going down in places like you mentioned, Milwaukee, Chicago, Cleveland, Baltimore, and the list goes on. Chief, I greatly appreciate your time as always, and great information there, and we appreciate you coming in. Chief Dan Roberts here on the program. Have a great day, my friend.
You too.
There you have it, Chief Dan Roberts. He's spending his time now in local law enforcement, but has also worked, of course, for the FBI. He was a G-man. And when we need questions answered about what's going on in the world of law enforcement, he's the guy we need. There you have it. Thursday on the Steve Gruber Show, the 29th of October. Thanks for dialing it in. You can find out more at stevegruber.com. You can find out more by going to the Steve Gruber Show Facebook page. Make sure you click like. Tell your friends. We'll be right back.
Delivering Michigan common sense with a big dose of truth and honesty.
Every time that I look in the mirror, all these lines in my face getting clearer. The past is gone.
I don't think there's a Republican debate. I didn't hear it last night, but I'm sure I could find it. And maybe I did hear it. Maybe I heard it and I hear it so often, it's so ubiquitous that I just skimmed right past it. And that's evoking Ronald Reagan's name and everything Republican. These guys evoke Ronald Reagan's name anytime they can. Well, Reagan did this, Reagan did that. You know, what he didn't do, he didn't walk on water, my friends. But was he a good president? Best of my lifetime, make no mistake. But you know, sometimes they seem to go a little bit too far. Don't forget, he did a couple of things that you may not totally agree with. Say, amnesty, for example, or signing into law gun control. You know, just saying. Let's shift gears, though, because I want to find out how Ronald Reagan would vote in 2016. How do you think he would step up to the podium? What would he support today? Which candidate would he be behind? John Wade. Here, the author of the new book, The Bipolar Millionaire and the Operation. Welcome back to the program, John.
It's good to be back.
Good to have you here. So tell me, my friend, Ronald Reagan, I mean, you can't listen to Republicans get together, you know, whether at a debate or having a couple of beers on a Friday afternoon, that they don't evoke the name of Ronald Reagan. You know, there ought to be statues built to this guy. And there probably ought to be a Reagan Memorial in Washington, D.C. Now, that I could actually support. But, I mean, people do evoke his name on an all too regular basis.
Well, I agree with you. I think he's the greatest president in my lifetime, too.
Well, there you go. So who do you think, watching last night or watching this campaign in general so far, who do you think Ronald Reagan would gravitate toward?
To be honest, I haven't made up my mind. I was for Scott Walker.
Yeah, I see. Well, what do you think Ronald Reagan would make of this whole, like the debate last night? The debate last night of this whole, you know, let's try to get them to fight amongst themselves. The media trying to create a food fight, you know. Donald Trump, are you a cartoon character? Ben Carson, can you do math? John Kasich, consult your friends over here, just like Ted Cruz had to say.
Well, I definitely disagree with the way the Republicans are going about selecting their candidates. I think lining them up with a minute and a half to respond to presidential-type questions is just not the right way to do it.
How do you think it should have been handled?
Well, I don't have a plan myself. I just another thing I think is that money has polluted our democracy all the way from the presidency to judgeships.
Well, it certainly has. I mean, money is everywhere, and people talk about campaign finance reform and too much money involved in the system, super PACs and shadow money and shadow support. I mean, Jeb Bush came into this race with $100 million or more. Hillary Clinton has more than that. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of money out there. It has to affect the system.
It does.
Anyhow, yeah. So I mean, I don't. How would you clean up the money system? I suppose.
Well, I reviewed a book, How the Republicans Can Win in 2014 and 2016. It's on my website, johnnewade.com, and it was right about 2014. It also reviewed some prior elections, 1980, 2012. It's a very good book to read because we certainly need to win in 2016 for sure.
Yeah, no question about that. You know, the whole event last night was pretty astounding, to say the least. The way that it was conducted by those moderators, it clearly came in with gotcha moments. That's what they wanted. They came in with the idea that they were going to be able to get the candidates to fight amongst themselves, or to pick fights, or to insult each other. They weren't there for a debate on anything in particularly interesting. They were there to create a food fight, is the way it appeared to me. We're on the line with John Wade, the Bipolar Millionaire in Operation author. John, give me your last thoughts on that debate and what we need to do to win in 2016.
Well, one thing that we need to do is not talk ill about another Republican.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. John, I greatly appreciate you stopping in today, and I appreciate the book, The Bipolar Millionaire. Thanks for talking to us today.
Yes, it is. It's good to talk with you.
All right. Thank you, Dave. All right, we're going to the hotline now. We're going to check in. Dave in Boyne Falls on the line. Dave, welcome to the program.
Good morning, Steve. Hey, listen, Reagan would have made those moderators look like fools. He was the smartest man in the room. He just didn't have to prove it, you know.
Well, what do you mean by that? He was the smartest guy in the room.
Well, Reagan had a calm intelligence. He knew the right thing to say. You know, these moderators, they're cans. You know, they had these foolish questions before the debate even began, and they were running for the zingers and stuff. And Reagan would have made them eat their words.
Well, that's true, and he would have done it. You know, one thing that was nice about Reagan, he did it in a graceful way. He did it in a graceful way that, you know, he would eviscerate them, and they didn't even realize their guts were on the stage floor until they looked down. He did it so gracefully.
Right.
And that was the beauty of Reagan, right? Absolutely.
Yeah,
class. That's what the moderators were missing last night. They didn't have one modicum of any decency or class. I think you're right on that, Dave, and I greatly appreciate you checking in.
Thank you.
The hotline number for you, 888-900-9966. 888-900-9966 is the number to call if you'd like to join the conversation. From Boyne Falls to Brighton and everything in between, we appreciate it. By the way, coming up here in the next few days, I'll have 3 brand new affiliates to share with you, and after that, about 5 more. It's a growing thing. You're part of a movement that we like to call the Steve Gruber Show. It's now 55 after the hour. The hotline is open if you want to jump on, 888-900-9966. Frank took that advice. He is in DeWitt today. Frank, welcome to the program.
Yes, good morning. I noticed the newspapers today, so far I've been scanning them, and they are not mentioning how the media got made a fool of last night. They're just trying to ignore that as if it hadn't happened. I think the Republicans, if they keep this up, they've hit on a winning strategy. They should attack the media continuously when they're on there, because this is such an obvious joke. And Ted Cruz and Rubio did a great job of pointing out how the media carries the Democratic Party's water. And Rubio pointed out how Hillary Clinton got caught lying in the Benghazi hearings.
And the media called it the best week of her campaign.
There were over 600 requests from our embassy to either evacuate or upgrade security, and they were all turned down, and Hillary Clinton claimed she never saw any of the requests. Now, that makes her, even if you believe her and throw your common sense out, it makes her the most stupid, incompetent person to ever hold that post. And, you know, the media did come out and act like, oh, she was brilliant. She won the election last night and or yesterday during the hearings and everything. It's just a joke, people. You think that you'd be resentful that the media is so obviously trying to make you vote Democrat. I mean, what do you think about that? Don't you think the media is a scandal?
Well, Frank, I think they think that you're. What insults me is they think you're actually that stupid, Frank. I got to run, my friend. I mean, they really think that you are so dumb, you can't figure out when she tells the world that she told her daughter it was a terrorist attack and lied to America. Don't worry, it'll all be in campaign ads someday soon. At this point, what difference does it make anyhow? Well, I'm telling you, it makes a lot of difference. 57 after the hour on a Thursday. We're going to listen to some of those comments from Cruz and Christie and Rubio and Trump and Carson. We'll break it down for you straight ahead right here on the Steve Gruber Show.